Hello and welcome here. Thank you so much for being part of this. It's good to know that you're watching this video, listening to this audio, whatever is the means by which you're following this particular uh, discussion or rather what that I want to teach on. My name is El and I am alright. Okay, today I'll be doing something that you want to call a Bible study, right? And I'm holding the New Living Translation. I've always loved this Bible and I still do. And the focus today of what I'm going to be discussing on is what are sexual needs in marriage. That's actually the topic, what are sexual needs in marriage, and what are the sexual needs of a husband, what are the sexual needs of a wife. And I'm picking this particular topic and I'm answering this particular question, generating it from the book of First Corinthians chapter 7, First Corinthians chapter 7 and First Corinthians chapter 7 verse 3 and 4. I'm going to be reading the New Living Translation. It says the husband should fulfill his wife's sexual needs and the wife should fulfill her husband's sexual needs. Okay, let me just stop there. The husband should fulfill the wife's sexual needs and the wife should fulfill the husband's sexual needs. Isn't that interesting that when it comes to sexual needs, Apostle Paul starts with husbands fulfilling that of their wives, right? Because many times we think that people have believed over the years, over centuries, many people keep on believing that marriage, that sex is actually for men. Sex is something that was designed for men. We have this misconception has traveled from one generation to the other, that we sometimes ask ourselves, where did they get this concept from? Where did they get this idea from? Who told them so? Like, where did they get it from? The truth about it is that we see people teaching it on the pulpit, and other places are like, hey, do you have a different Bible? Do you have a different scripture that we have in our hands, that we have in our homes and in our offices? Right? So we see verse 3 of First Corinthians chapter 7 opening with the husband should fulfill his wife's sexual needs. So which means that women also have sexual needs. They have valid sexual needs. And the next part of it says that the wife should fulfill her husband's sexual needs, right? And we want to answer the question today, what are these sexual needs? What are the sexual needs? Is it just coitus, right? Is it just vaginal sex that is sexual needs? Okay, for us to properly answer this question, we need to go back and ask the question, what's the purpose of sex? Why was sex designed in the first place? Why do we have sex as humans? Is our definition of sex the same definition that other animals in the animal kingdom have? Is it the same thing? Is sex for us just procreation? Because it is generally agreed that sex is for procreation. Of course, if you pay attention to biology, human anatomy, and see the way things function, you discover that, okay, you may want to agree that the final destination, the final end point of every sexual activity for animals, for humans, ends usually in procreation. But we also understand that it is not every time, right? So if we as humans are not ovulating, we may not conceive. And I'm using we to mean a husband and a wife together, right? So we know that it is the female man that actually ovulates. Okay, so now what are the sexual needs in marriage? What are these sexual needs that every spouse should make effort, every spouse should do everything possible to ensure that he fulfills and meets the sexual needs of the partner, of the wife or of the husband, right? First of all, we have the desire to be wanted, needed, and also to bond with our spouse, right? Thank God for hormones. Thank God for the way these hormones make us oxytocin, pheromones, and every other hormone that tries to pull us to each other, to want each other, to desire each other, to long for each other, because these hormones make us bond. They fuse us into one, and the two shall become one was not about when the law officer or the religious priest or the priest declares you as husband and wife. The two shall become one is actually the fusing of the bodies, and these bodies are fused in sexual intercourse, vaginal sexual intercourse, the penis inside the vagina. So one of the sexual needs that is to be fulfilled is actually this desire, this longing, this wanting to bond. Well, it is one of the basic reasons why people choose to get married, the desire to want to share companionship, to want to share oneness with a particular person, a person of your own. You are mine and I'm yours, right? All those statements and all the vows I will get to do, the exclusivity of our intimacy, it is a need. It is a need that every person should fulfill in their marriage. So it's not about just providing in the marriage, coming home to spend the night and going off again the next day to work or to your businesses. No. There is a need, a longing that sexual activities meet in your spouse. Remember, when we are talking about sex right now, we are not just talking about vaginal sex, but we are talking about everything that has to do with sex. So we are talking broadly about sexual activities, right? As I go on, I will be bringing them out one by one. Okay, the next thing is the desire for pleasure. Many times, we as individuals, whether we are men or we are women, just want to get the pleasure that sex gives, right? And that's what makes sex addictive, because it gives you a unique, amazing pleasure that the brain registers. Okay, what's with my tongue today? That the brain registers, and the brain usually once upon a time will remind the body, will remind itself, will remind you that, hey, there's this pleasure you have not gotten in a long while. Why don't you get that pleasure right now? Why don't you go for that pleasure right now? Why don't you make yourself happy right now, right? So there's this desire for pleasure that is a need that sex meets. Okay, then the desire for recreation, the desire to explore, the desire to adventure. There's a desire to hug, the desire to kiss, the desire to cuddle, and of course the desire for coitus. Many times we just think that sexual needs is all about going in and coming out, having the penis penetrate the vagina, doing all the business there and coming out. But when it comes to sexual needs, we are not just talking about that. We are talking about the intimacy, the general intimacy, not just the act of kiriwawa, right? Not just the act of, push it in, push it out, or whatever the different entertainment people or different people in the music industry have tried to explain it. It's actually about intimacy, and intimacy that shows through various means, through kissing, through cuddling, through caressing, through being together, through attention, through affection, through quality time, through in-depth communication and oneness. So when scriptures in the book of 1 Corinthians chapter 7 verse 3 says that a husband should meet and satisfy the sexual needs of the wife, and the wife should meet and satisfy the sexual needs of her husband, what Apostle Paul was wanting us to know, what God through Apostle Paul, through the Bible, was wanting us to know and understand, is that we are supposed to give our spouse the full range, wide range, totality of sexual pleasure, and not just sexual intercourse. And so that's why you must pay attention to how much pleasure your spouse derives from sex and sexual activities. Not just because sex is not just for you, right? Sex is not what we give, sex is not what we have or what we receive. The full definition of the enjoyment and pleasure, and full how will I say it now? The full maximization. What is maximization again? Okay, the full reality of, also enjoy the full reality of sex. It's not about giving it or receiving it. It's about experiencing it. It's about experiencing it. So you have to experience it, and you not just experience it with your body. You experience it with your soul. Right, so it has to be a soul connection, a soul ties and body, and that's why the Message translation in explaining 1 Corinthians chapter 6 and the rest says that we should not just go and start craving for those sexual relationships and those sexual activities that have no commitment to them, those sexual activities that are just shallow, those sexual activities that are just casual, that do not carry the commitment of intimacy, the commitment of I choose you and I'm here with you and we're going to go through this together, right? So this is actually what I want to explain to you. When scripture says fulfilling your spouse sexual needs, it's talking about fulfilling the entire needs of intimacy, not just sexual intercourse. So this can be revealed through cuddling, kissing, fondling, hugging, right, caressing, quality time, quality attention, of course, giving pleasure and rest. And so that's why you have to be deliberate about sex. You have to be deliberate about sexual activities. It's not just something you have to rush every time. It should not always be a quickie. It's not a fast food, right? There are times it should be deliberate. It should be really deliberate. Pounded yam with egusi soup, starch with banga soup. You get this tea, satana akpu with omebe black soup, right? It has to be deliberate. You have to be deliberate about giving your spouse sexual satisfaction, about giving your spouse sexual pleasure. Interestingly, many people agree that when you are deliberate about this, when you're particular about this, about giving your partner, about giving your spouse, about being focused on your spouse satisfaction sexually, you in return receive the benefit of the same pleasure or the same satisfaction. So go out there today with your spouse and do everything to give your spouse sexual satisfaction. Yes, sexual satisfaction, right? This is how to meet the sexual needs of your spouse. This is how to satisfy the sexual needs of your spouse, as clearly given to us in 1 Corinthians chapter 7 verse 3. My name is El and I'm alright. Remember to subscribe, right? You can check the description section so that you get to see other things or other products. Share this particular video audio so that your friends can enjoy the same things that you are enjoying. And if you have any question or any comments, you could WhatsApp us or you could just drop it in the comment section, and be assured that I'll be the one that will respond to it personally. Thank you so much. You rock. Oh, let me wear my 4 eyes so I can see very well.